Let's check to see if the online broadcasting connects. So the online broadcasting software seems to be connecting to the live studio. The When both of you have been talking, it seems like it registered both your voices, but both of you tested by saying hello, introducing yourselves. Peter Moon first, of course, say hello and introduce yourself briefly. Tell people about the situation.
All right. Well, we have. This is Peter Moon. I've just returned from Romania this last week, and we have had a dedicated denial of service to Douglas's YouTube broadcast. It has to do with his hookup to broadcast. So we're not going to be.
Well, we're broadcasting live, but we can't. The point is that I'm way behind in setting up the basically my little office around me from which I produce. So,
So in other words, we're being heard now.
theoretically, so we need people to respond.
Check the
Okay, T
YouTube.
Tank Barry says, "Get good evening from Sausalito, loud and clear, Douglas and Peter." Okay, and Acid Kick 96 says, "Loud and clear, Douglas. Good evening. Hi, Peter Moon." So Peter Moon's voice is being heard. That means Aristides' voice can be heard as well. So I just want everyone to know we are on live, but these two gentlemen will hold the first 10 to 15 minutes simply because I've got to set up my little throne of pillows that I sit on for the next 12 hours and all the rest of that.
You set that up and get comfortable. Okay, so I don't need to send out anything.
Yes.
Excellent.
That's correct. So the two of you have got this, and I'll go mute. Thank you so much for your patience. And Acid Kick 96 says, "Hi, T Tank Berry," and of course, thanks to all of these gentlemen for responding and letting us know about the quality of sound. Again, online broadcasting software seems to be registering both these gentlemen's voices. I will go mute now, and they will hold the stage. Bless you both. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Hello, Peter.
Hello. This
Hello.
is Peter and Aristides together
Yeah.
here holding the fort. Do you want to start off by saying anything?
I don't have anything special. Could someone in the chat say that they hear both of us? I think they could hear you, but just to make sure they can hear both of us.
Please let us know if you can hear Ari. If anybody's T-Tank or anybody else. Can you hear?
While we wait for that, guess you're all rested up, and any quick impressions you can give us about
But I just want to say, can somebody tell us that they hear?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Okay, I hear you both. Thank you very much.
Acid Kick. Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
And, I didn't know T-Tank lived in Sausalito, so beautiful little hamlet, or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, yes, I'm going to talk about the Romanian adventures, but I think I'm going to wait until Douglas gets back to do that. What I would say at this stage of the game, what occurred in it's interesting to see how people are in a state of mind where they think they are so well informed. And they're all plugged into the internet, listening to this and tied into Maui, or not, is it Maui? Yeah. I barely heard of this thing because what I was doing, I was plugging into nature. And whatever people are plugging into in Maui, which is a big event, it's very antithetical to nature. From everything I've heard about it, and I know very little about it. So why don't you tell me, what in your assessment, what happened in Maui? Because I just know there was a big fire. It's been, attributed to directed energy weapons and all.
Yeah, well, you always hear that when there's
and Oprah's to blame too, I hear. So, but tell me what happened.
Yeah, you always hear this directed energy weapon, hypothesis with these things, and that, I mean, I don't even think we have to be sure on that. I think some people think there are other suspicious details to it, like that these things can be some kind of a, like a land grab, or it can be used to get away with things that you normally couldn't because of, proper procedure or property rights that people have, to oust people from the land. I'm trying to pull up something that was a little more of a summary on that. So, and a lot of weird details. And I mean, some of this sometimes is a little fishy. You can't be sure, but they say a lot of weird things. Oh, water was suspiciously shut off, and how there's a lot of these weird coincidences sometimes with these things, and they could be just coincidences, or they could be a factor in some type of foul play. Big thing is, what is it? The police guy there, he was back during the Las Vegas shooting. He was in the police department there. So that's quite a coincidence, So if they want a guy, to help him get away with stuff, as the theory would go. Let me see here. Okay, I pulled up a little list. Cell communications went down. Water supply was turned off, leaving residents and firefighters unable to save businesses, homes, and lives.
Why was the water supply turned off?
I don't know. This is just, this is nothing official. This is just kind of a little list of something somebody put together that they reportedly happened. Citizen charter boats on course to rescue residents were turned away. The police chief thing, he was part of the Las Vegas police in 2017 when all that happened. Let's see. People bitching about President Biden offering only $700 per household. At the same time, he sent another $24 billion to Ukraine. So let's see here. The World Economic Forum was spearheading a plan to use Maui as a prototype for AI-controlled clean energy. In January 2023, a conference held in Maui focused on transforming the entire island into a 15-minute smart city. This is alleged. I don't have actual documents. This is just an informal list.
I heard about the 15-minute smart city. Have you heard about those smart cities?
Yeah. They're saying everybody wants you to, live in the smart city and, eat the bugs and live in the pod and drive the electric car and, get everybody herded into their, AI surveillance cities, as the theory goes. One more thing here. Real estate developers have been pushing hard to acquire Lahaina. I'm not sure how to say it. Basically, they've been pushing to acquire land. Indigenous locals have denied every offer to sell their sacred land. So that could have changed that. So it's, it's a lot of coincidences at the least. So.
Well, what I would say, first and foremost, when any incident happens that's horrible, there are all sorts of data points.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's tons of data, and there's people that, have moved and whatnot. So I suppose probability-wise, you could pick out a lot of causal explanations or attempted explanations.
Sure.
What I would say with regard to AI, and this is very interesting, it came from a friend of mine. I call her a friend, but I haven't, seen her in over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Janet Lesson. Her and her husband were Sasha Lesson. They're tantrikas, practitioners of tantra. She was very hypersensitive, and I think they lived on the Big Island of Hawaii, but I don't know that they still do. I don't know that they don't. But she had a lot of weird experiences with this big sort of mega computer installation on the Big Island of Hawaii. Wow. It was almost like that was like Mind Control Headquarters Central. Mm-hmm. That's on the Big Island of Hawaii.
Yeah, it could be that. I mean, if they wanted a place to kind of prototype these type of approaches, maybe that it's a nice little isolated place to do that with.
And of course, this is on Maui, and I think what's most significant about it, from what I've seen, and I've not plugged into this, and I probably won't.
Yeah.
I'll let all the other well-informed people, take this and it's like, was it wagging the dog, chasing the tail of the dog? But that the celebrities are like sort of taking it on the chin here.
How's that?
Well, I think it's Oprah, Paris Hilton, and Stevie Nicks. They all have these huge estates nearby.
But did they get burned?
They didn't get burned. And of course, probably the reason they didn't burn, because if you have a big estate with a bunch of grass, it's not as likely to catch fire. You see what I'm saying? If
right.
It's like if there's a fire in New York City, you might be better off in the middle of Central Park.
Right.
If all the buildings are ablaze, you might be better off there. You might be. That would be better than a lot of. Well, you got a lot of steel and cement there too. You could be insulated. But I'm saying is they're of course they're not in the city, and there's a quite probable. Nevertheless, what's being exposed here, this is very French Revolution stuff, where the rich become suspect. The rich become suspect just because they're rich, and you have that, the stress on the middle class. And I was just listening to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talk about the stripping of the middle class, and this is not something new. It's something that's accelerated.
Right.
And I wonder how bad it really is. I'm not suggesting it's not bad, but I'm wondering, because we're living in exponential times with so many people. We have so much more wealth and so many more millionaires, and millionaires are, basically upper middle class.
Right.
If that, and rapidly becoming middle class. So $1 million is not going to last you very long.
Well, I think there's a lot of these billionaires that have huge estates in Hawaii, and maybe they'll have even bigger ones now. I don't know.
I was just about to bring that up because I spoke to a friend of mine who, had he's somebody nobody heard of, but he was a very prominent individual. That he was telling me what happened to this guy. He disappeared. He disappeared, allegedly dead, and he has gone to New Zealand, I believe the Northern Island, where there's a lot of billionaires who were building underground bunkers. In other words, they're getting ready for the apocalypse.
Yeah, New Zealand too, supposedly.
Yeah, but the point is, these billionaires are operating out of fear, and they're doing preparedness. I remember in the 1970s, when I was in Scientology, one of these guys he was a dedicated Sea Org member who was now going out and circulating with the public. Mm-hmm. And he was telling me about all these survival clubs, which I think evolved into what you call preparedness expos. And preparedness expos rode along the back of conspiracy. They began to merge with conspiracy. Sure. So you have survivalists. And I had a friend of mine in the 1970s who his father lived in southern Jersey, and he was a survivalist. Like extreme. This is the 1970s. And so we've had survivalism going on for a long, long time. And the only one who seems to have really caught the what do you call it, the brass ring is the biblical character Noah. He caught the brass ring. Survivalists are typically extreme, and I don't think it works out so well for the most part. They're missing the forest from the trees. Historically, there are examples, I'm sure, who did not.
A little bit of that could be very wise, but taking it way too far, could be a little bit of a waste of time,
It becomes I seriously looked into buying some of this backup food. It was about $600 to $800.
Yeah.
In the George Bush administration. And one of my friends looked into it too. He was much more into it than I was, but he wasn't into it to the extreme. He just, And basically the Army had bought all these things up.
Yeah.
So it was very hard to get one. Furthermore, the food in it was highly questionable. It was
some of it's junky. I mean, you can honestly do better just kind of buying non-perishable food and putting it up on the shelf.
yes, spam, and
Right.
and this sort of thing, cheese. And then I found out that it's only good for about 3 years. So
Yeah.
had I invested in it, I would have wasted the money.
Yeah.
I just, I looked into it and it's okay, good. So then, 3 years later, you might be eating spam and cheese just to get your money's worth.
Right.
From that perspective. So I think Douglas has said at times that it's if we're all going to go up in smoke, we're all going to go up in smoke. It's and then what quality of life do you have?
Right.
You're surviving in a maelstrom of events. So
right. I think there's
ahead.
the approach. You just, you maybe want to have, a month's worth of stuff, and you hope after a month, whatever the big issue is, clears up. Or some people say, "Oh, I want to have 3 months or 6 months," but what good is it having 10 years worth of stuff? Like what, like you said, what kind of life you're going to be living?
Yes, and then there was the Elizabeth Clare Prophet Group. I forget what they called themselves. They were into the violet flame of Saint Germain, and she had a whole militia mindset. She had a whole bunker underground up in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
She was an extremist cult, and was hard to take seriously, but she attracted a lot of followers. So this doomsday apocalypse sort of mindset has been around for a long, long time. And as we find ourselves in exponential times of development of all sorts of dramas, and I don't mean to suggest that all the dramas are just only dramas, they're real life situations. Things happen in mass quantities. And then our evaluation of it is different. So I mean, one has to navigate their life. However they navigate their life, because I could be, like say, I could be in Romania when, the United States goes to hell, and I say, well, I'll just stay here.
Right.
Well, just let and figure it out there, or vice versa. I could be in the United States when Romania goes to hell. If it, I don't mean to suggest that it will, but I'm saying it's like, where are you at the time of the apocalypse? Are you now this will be.
Where were you when the apocalypse happened?
Exactly. And my friend Maria DeAndrea, who we had on, she had put a wingman on me for the trip. Now she had years ago put a wingman on me for all my trips. And this wingman was very present on my trip, very present. And she said, yeah, it's like, if the whole plane goes down, you won't be on it, or you'll be safe. Everybody else won't be. Sort of that was sort of the shamanistic roll of the dice she gave for me. I would be protected. It wasn't that the other people would be unprotected. I would be protected. So in other words, no matter what happens, I would be protected. And as I say, it started right away on my way to the airport when my friend Clara was in the wrong terminal. And I was headed for the wrong terminal, but I got a notice on my cell phone saying, go to Terminal 1. And so I called her, because, you sign up with Delta and they put you on Air France. And so Air France operates out of Terminal 1. So I had to, negotiate her bus, and, so you got to get on the bus because the rail is broken, or they're being reconstructed, what they call the air train that goes from terminal to terminal at JFK. And so I was like orchestrating her coming to me and talking to the bus woman out front. And I was like, I had everything under control. And that was just the first example. I don't need to go into the details, but the wingman appeared time and again on the trip, even to the point of getting us a new bus, which made our drive much more comfortable.
All right.
So, but I'm saying is, with all these disasters that one has to negotiate, one has to, be on their toes.
Yeah.
And be lucky as well.
Well, everybody also has, everybody knows, some nutbag prepper uncle or something like that. But I guess I wonder with Hawaii, it's logistically such a unique place that, if they wanted to take a certain interest in steering it a certain way, I think so.
Well, and the government responses are typically clumsy, just by the nature of government. They tend to be clumsy. I think one of the best responses in terms of human dignity was after 9/11, when George Bush, and I don't mean to suggest this guy's good by any stretch of the imagination. I believe he was covering up a lot of stuff, but he calmed down so much of the, people would be insured, people would be protected sort of thing. The insurance companies came to individuals, and there was a lot of I guess what you'd say, reinforcement. In other words, they could have taken that incident and turned it into a complete Armageddon. They really could have. They could have just turned it into Armageddon, that whole incident, if they wanted to.
In what way that it wasn't already?
Oh, it could have been 10 times worse. They could have flamed up the war. They could have said we were under attack when we weren't. They used it as they misused it in terms of trying to reinforce a real conspiracy agenda. There was some financial manipulation of what went on, but they could have just said, we're at war, the terrorists at war. And they could have created a whole scenario whereby you could not trust your neighbor. And they could have. Okay,
I see what you're saying.
They could have done other bombings of other cities.
Yeah.
They could have just done all sorts of crap that they didn't do. They could have unleashed holy hell. And they instead, it just seemed to be a big manipulation of consciousness. And maybe they regret that they didn't take it further. I don't know. But,
right.
So I was very surprised and relieved that they didn't make it worse than it was. I mean, it was bad because I'm on the way to New Jersey on that day, and and then I was supposed to, that was a Tuesday, and I'm supposed to drive up to Vermont on Friday.
Yeah,
for this.
I was there.
Yeah, the seminar. And I'm on the island, and I'm thinking, I got to get off the island. I don't know if we're going to be, kept on the island of Long Island, because they shut down the Verrazano Bridge.
Yeah.
And it was like you couldn't. So I don't know if they shut down the New York City bridges. And they might have, because they were looking at people. And I said, am I going to be able to get off the island at all? I said, how do I get off the island? And I'm not even thinking of my daughter, who's at my ex-wife's house 1.5 miles away. I'm not even thinking about them. I'm just, thinking like in a panic mode. I got to get off the island. How do I get off the island? I didn't even remember that I had a daughter for that time, because she was with me, I would have remembered her. But on those days, she was not with me. So, because we were sharing
subconsciously, I think you knew she was okay, but you were worried about, your plans, your travel plans. And
I wasn't even worried about the travel plans. I was worried about getting off the island for safety.
Oh, okay.
Because you're trapped on an island.
True.
Long Island's a huge island, but I'm thinking like, wow. So,
you didn't really know how bad it was going to be.
Yeah, and by the time, in a few days it settled out, and of course it's quite possible to travel.
Part of the tragedy for that is, I believe, at the thing in Vermont, whatever it was called, that Preston and Al Bielek were supposed to be there, and part of the tragedy for me with 9/11 is I didn't get to meet them because that derailed their plans.
Well, yes, but I don't know if you were privy to this, but what happened?
Something else with Preston. I mean, maybe not just that he couldn't travel. I recall that something he got pulled in.
I
something
talked about it,
yeah.
But it actually created a permanent rift between the Swerdlows and Preston, because the Swerdlows are the one who had planned all that event and worked so hard on it. And Preston was calling. He said he couldn't go to the event because there were going to be F-16s that were going to bomb and kill him and Al and Stuart and Duncan and I. And he was like, and he terrified the woman who was doing the call-in so much that she didn't go to the event. She was hired by Pippi Halsey, and she got scared. She wouldn't go to the event because Preston scared the daylights out of her, and of course nobody was bombed.
They would really go and bomb our little event. I mean, come on.
Well, it wasn't the event. They were bombing. Preston was saying they wanted to take out all of us. All of the Montauk conveyors.
That everyone would be in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, and then he said he was pulled into, I think, finding cell phones and at the tower itself, and in the rubbish, and he was called into duty there, which Stuart didn't believe him. I backed him up to the degree that he was my friend and my co-author. I took it at face value. There was maybe some evidence to back up that he actually was there and he was called on by the government. But in any case, this was Preston's own tendency to self-sabotage. Right. And it certainly undermined the event. He didn't need to do that. Duncan certainly showed up.
Yeah.
So that was that. It was also interesting. The last time we were all together was an event in Sparta, New Jersey, which is in northwest New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And when we went, it was the biggest, at that time, the biggest storm in the history of New Jersey. And that on that very day, and I made it there. I left early. Al and Duncan made it there too. He left early, and Preston and Al were coming, and they got all snarled up in traffic. They didn't arrive till the end of the evening when the first lecture was over at 10 p.m. or something. And then Preston proceeded to, he talked for about 10 minutes. He then stepped off the stage, hit a step and fell down and hit his head. I think he might have cracked his skull, and he couldn't, he was kind of out of the whole event. They took him back to the place he was staying, and then he had all this download from the Palladians or something. It just,
of course, yeah.
Yeah, it just didn't. But
what event was that?
What?
What event was that?
It was an event in Sparta, New Jersey, by a church. I forget who did it. I met two of my friends, two ladies who stayed my friends for a long time, Doria and Lisa. I was very close to them for a long time. I'm still would be if I talked to them. But that was a big event, a big. Big, it was the last time we were all together. I don't remember if Stuart was there. I don't remember, but he could have. I just don't remember.
Around what year was this?
Oh, God, it was probably,
before Stuart moved out to Michigan.
I think it was after Stuart moved.
Okay, but he would still come back because I used to.
It was the early. It was in. Well, let me see. 2011. That Vermont happened in 2001.
Yeah.
That was 9/11. It was probably not much more than a year or two after that.
Oh, okay.
And then I remember in 2006, I think it was, going to Washington. This was just me, and where there was in July, to speak to the Moors in DC, and that was like the biggest, I think, ice storm in the history of Washington DC. It was in July. The ice had just got on the poles and whatnot, broke the electric, or ruined the electric. And so I didn't find this out till I was trying to negotiate getting into this Cathedral of the Sacred Heart, or whatever it's called, where I was supposed to meet Catherine Neville and Carl Pribram. And we're going through there, and Sid Catlett, and I'm going through there with my friend Elias Bay, who I picked up in New Jersey, and we're like, the street lights are all dead, and we're going through, and finally, we negotiate to get into this part by this big park in DC. And when I get there, Sid says, "What the hell did you do? What are you bringing with you?" He said, "This is the biggest storm in the history of DC, which he's from." And it was in the summertime. And the center point was right around where we met. So this was very interesting in terms of, the energetics of what happened in and around some of the things that I've done. I'm just glad that I wasn't in Maui. In fact, I'd always felt an inevitable attraction to Hawaii. I think it started with my father's home movies when he was there pre-World War II. And you see Waikiki Beach is completely empty when he's taken home movies in 1941. And I always felt drawn to Hawaii until my doctor friend told me when he went there, he says, all of this genetic mutations in the people from the food that they eat. It's Monsanto headquarters in one respect, and he said that the natives are just eating crappy food, and it's really affecting the genetics of the entire Hawaiian Islands. And it's just the native Hawaiians.
Right.
It's everybody. So he just said it was a horrible situation dealing with health issues over there.
Yeah, I guess once native peoples start to get separated from their land, their ways, or their native diets, they tend to probably just go to the, somehow in the really crappy living conditions, food, all that.
Well, yes, and it applies to the invaders as well. Mm-hmm. It's just not the natives; it's just the people, right. The children of the Hawaiian Islands.
Right, but usually they don't have the money, like the invaders or the rich people. They can afford the the organic or whatever.
I don't think it had anything to do with that.
No,
it wasn't. Going to Whole Foods is not going to save you there in Hawaii. Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And Whole Foods is so inferior to what anything you find in Romania in terms of just the naturalness of the food.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Hawaii is no longer a place of appeal to me. I'm sure it's beautiful, but it's as they say, with every place you go to in America, it's overpopulated compared to what it was. California is not what it was. It's still got some beautiful spots, and of course we see this tremendously in the inner city of San Francisco and the LA. In New York, they're saying, God, thousands of homeless people per week, if not per day. And they're just being inundated with homeless people in New York City. And there's been successful attempts to minimize their presence on Long Island. And people are coming, it's really, I guess what you'd say, apocalyptic, as I say. I mean, to a degree it's apocalyptic. I think I'll only realize when I finish this book with Douglas, because it's, he sees these visions of apocalyptic events when he puts on the Vox Arca for diagnostics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where so much of the information is headed towards a critical mass with all of these things that come up. Do we have any clue as to how Douglas is doing? Because I should tell, we've been jabbering for about 37 minutes,
Yeah.
and Douglas was hoping to see, because his he had a dedicated
DDoS, he thinks.
could you
Yeah.
explain that to the audience?
Dedicated denial of service. I think it's where they basically just hammer your device with a lot of pings or whatever to the point where it gets overwhelmed. I'll look up a little more.
Well, that's good. In other words, his and basically this prevented him from being able to be comfortable, because he's going to broadcast for 12 hours.
Yeah.
So this undermined his presence, and he said it would take him 10 to 15 minutes. So we were supposed to hold the stage. I thought he would reappear by now. And Douglas, if you can hear us, could you give us a heads up as to what's going on? It's not absolutely necessary, but it would be nice to know, because I would like to have his presence before I begin the main narrative